Here we are again. This is my latest acquisition. I love diesels. I prefer diesels over standard gas cars. And that's kind of unusual here in the States, especially in the heart of the country, in Chicago. But once you realize something, you got to stick with it. So I went on Craigslist. I found a diesel that a woman seller was selling for an incredibly low rate. I couldn't understand why. And in her description, she said that she had put 2 gallons of gas in standard petrol in with her diesel, and she filled up the tank the rest of the way with diesel, drove the car the rest of the day, and the next day it wouldn't drive. Sounds kind of fishy, right? Well, it was fishy. I went and purchased the car. I purchased it for I want to say, what is it, about it's about 800 euro or $1,100 here in the States. And looking at the car, I should have known. I moved it off the lot. And once I moved it off the lot, once I first got there, I actually pressed down on the timing belt. This was missing. The timing belt cover was missing. There's a lot of stuff that's missing here. But the timing belt cover was missing. I lightly pressed on the timing belt, assuming that I wouldn't have to do anything crazy except for take this loose and then pump out the diesel petrol mix that she had, and then go ahead and break the seals and pump out the rest of the diesel and go ahead and replace the filter. But as I moved it off the lot and waited for the tow truck, I pressed down on the timing belt a little harder just to make sure. It was kind of like something was telling me to do it. When I pressed it down, it actually moved down away from this roller. And I knew then that it was the timing of the diesel pump, the reason why it wasn't working. Her other explanation had nothing to do with it. So I had overpaid for the car by about $300, 300 US dollars. In here you can see whoever did the timing belt before, they just ripped out the mud flap. Literally they cut it out over here. I don't know if you can see it, but they cut out the mud flap on this side. They took off the timing belt cover. They bit a hole in here so that when they removed the camshaft to do whatever they did magically inside to get the timing back where it was, they could pull the cam off without taking it off the end. I don't know how you retime it without separating the crank sprocket, the cam sprocket from the cam. You're supposed to loosen that up, and then you can actually get it to time properly, and then you tighten it up. That's your last step, is you actually tighten the cam sprocket. But all the buckets, I wish I had the buckets here. Every other bucket was smashed. Had spider marks and bash marks on it. So I had new buckets. I just had buckets. Just happened to have buckets laying around. I took the crankshaft off. I used their goofy method and pulled it straight out. And then I took all the old buckets out. One of them was a little difficult to get out, but it wasn't stuck down. And then I put all the new buckets in, took a clean look at it. All the buckets were at a level height. So that told me right there that all the springs on the valves had pulled them back up so that they were all roughly the same height. Now I wasn't using a mic to see how many millimeters or microgram meters that the actual the buckets were sitting, how high they were sitting, so I could measure the outside. But I visually inspected it, and they all looked like they were same heights, which was great. That told me I didn't have to take the head off. So I just went ahead and put the cam back on, reset the timing, and then I found out what the problem was. Whoever set the timing before, the tensioner adjuster, they just threw it on there anyway. They didn't put it, it has a feeler that goes into a spot up against the timing belt back, plastic backer cover. There's actually a metal slot in there. The feeler fits in there, and it keeps the tensioner from spinning. Then you're allowed to put tension on it. But they just put the feeler anywhere and then tensioned it down, then tightened down the 13 millimeter nut that's on the end. And I guess eventually what happened was that feeler just started to slide up, and then the nut got a little looser. As that feeler loosens up, that takes the tension off the nut. So then the nut loosened up, and the whole timing went out because the whole belt went slack. Belt was still good, tensioner was still good. I just had to bend the feeler arm back in there so that I can get it into the slot. I wanted to do this real quick and dirty because it was a quick acquisition. I wanted to make sure that the car ran. Once I set the timing, I actually turned it by hand with the 19 millimeter socket on the main crank at the bottom. I did not take off that outer pulley, and I just went ahead and cranked that sucker around twice. Everything sat in the same spot. Since these are interference engines, if one of the valves was down or broken or a piece of something was in there, it would not have turned all the way around. So turned all the way around, and then once I'm gonna take you around here. Once I got in the car, I actually didn't have to prime it or anything. I got in the car, I put the key in ignition, pressed down on the gas pedal, and it started right up. It's a really great feeling to know that the car ran. Well, I usually don't drive automatics, and I've heard horrible things about the 01M transmissions that are in the 98 to 03 Volkswagens, Beetles, the new Beetles, the Jettas, and the Golfs, and some of the Audis. And this one appears to be leaking trans fluid, so I'm hoping that it has a slip between first and second gear. I'm hoping that it's just low on fluid. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to drop all the fluid out, change the filter, try and see where the leak is coming from. If it's coming from the seal, then replace the seal and get the fluid back up. What I'm going to actually use is, and I know that some people are not going to like this, I'm going to use ATF plus 4, which is a Chrysler or Dodge rated transmission fluid. It's all synthetic, but it's got really high detergents in it, and Chrysler / Dodge use this to repair the defect in their transmissions. They actually patented this special type of ATF fluid because it has different viscous properties, and the viscous properties will on some cars that have sticking valves, that's why you get a really poor shift quality. On some cars that have sticking valves, these are not valves in the engine, these are the valves in the transmission itself. This particular transmission fluid will actually loosen those valves and unstick them. So it's really good stuff if you're having trans problems. Before you spend $2,000 to replace your transmission, it's better that you go ahead and do a change, and you put in ATF plus 4. You should do your own research to make sure that you're not going to ruin your transmission. But if you're at a point where you know you're having transmission issues and you want to do a flush, that's what a lot of people, they would take it to one of these places and they say they do a power flush or whatever. But you just do a standard drain, you put in the ATF plus 4, it gets in there and it'll loosen those sticking valves. You got to float through each gear, probably put 100 miles on it before it gets fully circulated. Okay, 100 miles sounds about right. And you should notice an improvement. If you don't notice improvement, then you go back to plan A. Plan A was that you were going to replace the transmission anyway. But if you're talking about a US dollar figure of $200 or a 1,200 euro, which I don't know how you guys on the other side of the pond get away with the cheaper prices, but there is a dollar conversion, a monetary conversion built in there, but you are paying less than we're paying here. I guess it's the availability of people who specialize in this type of thing. In Chicago, we don't have a lot of people who specialize in diesels. There are some Audi hitmen who the dealers hire to do all of their specialized vehicle stuff. But strangely enough, in Minnesota, I'm going to shout out to Minnesota, you guys, you drive the extremely large gas American Ford tough diesel trucks, and you drive the little Volkswagen diesels too, and nobody hears about that. I mean, everywhere you go out in Minnesota, there are these little Volkswagen diesels everywhere. And you guys, I guess I should go on vacation up there and take a couple of my cars and get you guys to work on them. But I'm trying to work on them as best I can here. If anybody has any questions, comments, or concerns, or if you want me to answer anything, I'm here and I will answer your questions. Take care. And TDI love from Chicago. Bye-bye.